So you know how every alcoholic beverage has clearly displayed on the label the alcohol content by volume, by percentage of the drink that is alcohol. For instance, the only beer I could find in my house is Modelo Especial, and it's a beer that says 4.4% alcohol by volume, very clearly labeled. This was actually more difficult to find than most beers. It's kind of written in silver on the side in sideways text. Most of them, beer and other alcoholic beverages, clearly say right on the front of the label with pretty big letters what percentage alcohol they are: 5%, 10%, 8.2%. What if I told you that a federal law made it illegal to put the alcohol content on beer until very recently the Supreme Court struck down that law? So welcome to the Liberty Block podcast. It's Aldo Axelman coming at you today with another short video of a Supreme Court case. This one is called Rubin versus Coors Brewing Company. The Coors company from Colorado that we all know sued the federal government in federal court because the Federal Alcohol Administration Act, the FAAA of 1935, so a rather old law, passed right after Prohibition, makes it illegal to put the alcohol content on beer because the government apparently was afraid of strength wars, meaning companies would try to outdo each other by advertising that they had stronger beer, and the strength wars of the alcohol would eventually climb and destroy society. And the Supreme Court agreed that that is an issue, but thankfully still struck down the law. So the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, they do control alcohol, and in the 1990s, Coors had a label, and of course, with our government, before you put any label like this one on any can, and I've written about this in other articles and other chapters of my book, before you have any label for a beer or any kind of beverage or any food or anything, you first have to get the government to approve it. If I wanted to make Alu's beer or Joe Smith's candy, I can't just slap any label, wrapper, design on my product and sell it. Oh, no. We have a great prior restraint kind of thing that's supposed to be unconstitutional, where for alcohol and other types of products, to a lesser extent, you have to go to the government and beg them for permission to use that label. So I discovered this case, as I have with the other 1,000 to 2,000 cases in the same way, because I'm writing a book about the First Amendment and its many violations. Some might say upwards of 38 trillion. So in this big chapter, it's currently chapter 17 in my book, it addresses food labels, and also we get into alcoholic beverages labels, and I address the court cases that either upheld or struck down these laws and regulations and these rules. So anyway, the ATF rejected Coors' application for approval for the proposed label for their beer cans because it had the percent alcohol on it. They sued because it violated the First Amendment. The courts, so the district court and then the 10th Circuit Court that covers Colorado and then the Supreme Court, all used seemingly the Central Hudson test, which is another case I address in a different chapter of the book, because that touches on a whole bunch of other types of First Amendment law. But it's a form of intermediate scrutiny, which is, as it sounds, not strict scrutiny, not rational basis review. It's a middle ground for looking at how difficult a law will be to overcome a First Amendment challenge. So pretty much the Supreme Court goes over, in order to satisfy the Central Hudson test, it's like 4 prongs, I believe, the government has to have a substantial interest in this, and in the Supreme Court, the justices do believe that the government has a substantial legitimate interest in preventing strength wars and preventing people from getting overly intoxicated, I suppose. The regulation also, prong 2, it must directly and materially advance the government's substantial interest. This regulation does. The regulation must be narrowly tailored and I believe this is where it fails. They said it could have been done with least restrictive means, so therefore the law was struck down. Nice, simple video. The courts just said it was more extensive than necessary, and so in 1995, 60 years after the law was passed, finally, because Coors challenged it, it was struck down by the courts. And so this is one of the few videos about court cases that I do that's kind of good news, even though I'm framing it in a pessimistic way. Why did it take so long for the law to be struck down? But yeah, very interesting. You'd think the government wants transparency and labeling, and most of this chapter is about purported transparency in labeling. And this chapter I find very interesting, kind of the most interesting and illustrative of the book, because people are very familiar with food and drink, because most people consume those things every day. And so we're familiar with labels, and it's very interesting that labeling, I didn't realize it until I did the research for the book, labeling is so controlled by the government, especially with alcohol, but even any candy. If you want to make Alu's candy bars, I mean, every single part of it, I believe, from the size of the text, the size of the ingredients, the manufacturer's address, phone number, website, it all has to be on the label, I believe. The text size of certain things has to be as big, like warnings, any potential allergen. If you make butter or milk or anything, you have to list all the allergens, the common things that people are allergic to, of which one of them is milk. So if you have milk or butter, which is made from a cow, like milk, you do have to list milk as a potential allergen, which is an ingredient in butter. And if you don't, then the government, the FDA or something, will make you recall all of those and bankrupt you, which happened recently, like a year ago. So yeah, labels, food labeling is totally controlled, especially with alcoholic beverages. And this chapter is really, really interesting. So the working title for the book is The Muzzled Amendment, all about the First Amendment, how it's been destroyed, and what we can do about it. And it's coming out hopefully later 2025, maybe the fall, but it depends on a lot of factors. So until then, check out libertyblock.com for more, aluaxelman.com. You can follow us at LibertyBlock on X and some other platforms, and at aluaxelman on everything. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any other suggestions for videos, and have a great day.